Okay, so welcome everybody to our public lab meeting. Welcome to all the colleagues who are joining us today. So we've got a number of items on the agenda. First and foremost, David, can you just sort of any apologies to note?
Yes, we have apologies from Amanda Halford and Chris Oglesby.
Okay. Thank you very much. Standard declaration of interest. You'll see minutes from a meeting that Mike chaired in January, which is a different lifetime for many reasons, but that's because that was the last public meeting that we've had, and therefore those minutes are there and shared with colleagues. This is a public meeting. The summary notes that we had are from previous meetings, which are just in summary capturing discussions that we've had. And obviously these minutes will be captured to be shared with colleagues. So I'm going to now, just as a slight change to the agenda, just invite Shauna to just give us a quick update on the work we've been doing through Marketing Manchester around the LEP's, sort of comms and comms strategy. Shauna, are you on the call?
I'm not sure Shauna's on the call, but I think Simon Donoghue might be.
Is Simon on? No, hello? Simon?
Yeah.
Can I then ask my co-chair Lou to just step in and just give an update on what's going on with comms?
Yeah, I think Shauna is scheduled to join us, but in brief, everybody's obviously aware of the discussions at the last meeting around our kind of work
Lou.
with. Oh,
sorry, Shauna, are you on?
Lou, it's Shauna Southern here. I'm actually here. You can't see me, but I'm.
Okay, Shauna, I'll hand over to you. But I think just to kind of, for context and as a reminder for the rest of the board, the work that Simon and team are undertaking is a kind of couple of weeks in now. We've got the first outputs and plans starting to take shape, but really that work is very aligned directly to the proposition work that we've shared today. So the kind of pillars and messages that we want to start to build. I think in the right spirit of the moment, we're working in a pretty agile fashion, I would say. So we're not building a comms plan for 12 months. We're working a few weeks ahead. But really, this is about supporting the kind of strategic priorities, building the confidence we've talked about, pushing some of the big messages that we want to get out there, and beginning to own some of the kind of topics. And of course, within that, there's a very clear underlying theme of innovation, which you'll start to see in the first piece. But Shauna, I'll leave you to talk through a little bit of where we're up to.
Thanks, Lou. And if you could just say, can you hear me okay?
Yep, we can hear you, Shauna.
Lovely, thank you. So thanks for the introduction, Lou. This is very much a piece of work targeting UK national decision makers and governments and regional opinion formers, and also business and communities. The key messaging really is laying the foundations for GM's economic proposition, and all the stories that we've chosen play into the public-private collaboration and leading really from GM-LEP, using the GM-LEP to celebrate and lead the story. Two cross-cutting themes, as Lou mentioned, addressing inequalities, and that's showing that not only the economic but the social impact, and innovation is a major theme. So we're delivering across three specific strands. One is a rolling strategic comms plan, as Lou mentioned, and this has been led by a small flighty steering group. So that's Lou and Elise, Simon and Mark Hughes, and delivering through the GM and Marketing Manchester comms teams. So we kicked off last month, three delivery strands. One is rolling strategic comms of stories, and you can see one that's gone live on the GM-LEP website yesterday, and it's a story about Gelponic, which is an intelligent soil alternative, and this was born out of a University of Manchester startup, a company called AEH, Innovative Hydrogel. And so it's a lovely story. Have a look, and it's done in a format that we hope you like. The steering group was very much led on this short, sharp video with a narrative to go alongside it. So the idea is that we'll produce a suite of these stories. The second is really responding to reactive media and profile raising. So we've started by interviewing each of the LEP board members, so the 2 co-chairs and the sector leads, and then we'll hopefully get around all of the board members to profile. And you see that Mo's profile has gone live on the LEP website. And then thirdly is that domestic GM facing confidence building campaign. And as Andy pointed out, it's about case studies about businesses returning to work safely. And I know that the Growth Company's already done some work on this with Bruntwood. That Escape to the Office campaign will very much be part of that. So that's just a taster. It's just the first month we've been doing this. We hope to come back and give you an update at each LEP meeting. Back to you, Lou. Splendid.
Thanks, Shona.
Mo, I'll just add to that, just because we want to work in an agile way and have as much of the board involved as possible, even though we've got a small group of us working. We're going to just keep marketing as a permanent agenda item for these sessions, so that people have got visibility, they've got the opportunity to shape and input that.
Yeah, superb. Okay, so moving on to the agenda, Andy, the 1 year living with COVID plan. Do you want to just give an overview on that?
Thanks very much, Mo. So of course we're in a phase now, an interim phase, where without a vaccine, without a treatment, we're going to have to live in a different way, but also support our communities in a different way. Picking up on Lou's last point there around a safe return to work. Sorry, Shona's point. Obviously, we're going to have to make adaptations, all of us, for this period, and the 1 year plan is Mo seeking to do that at the same time as sort of laying some foundations for then the return to the Greater Manchester strategy and our full approach. So it's kind of a piece of work that is trying to sort of take us through this middle period of this crisis, which is going to be extremely challenging, but the plan is intending to provide the support that people will need through that. So what people will see within it is a range of issues that we identify that we believe are things that we will need to support people with coming through this, with regard to mental health support, employment support, particular focus on young people and the work that's being done by Diane Modal and the Young Persons Task Force, working towards a Young Persons Guarantee. What we set out is a number of deliverables which are intended to help our communities through this particular phase. So many of them do focus on young people. A focus on the catch-up provision that some of our young people will need, given the disruption to their education. As I was just saying, a focus on mental health support and understanding the pressure that people have been under. Thinking about public service delivery and the innovation that we've seen during the crisis in terms of community support through the hubs that our districts set up. So thinking about how we can capture the benefits of that form of delivery in this period and move it into the mainstream. Mo, there's a whole set of deliverables that are outlined in the paper, and I don't intend to go through them all. But obviously, what this is intended to do is navigate us between the crisis that we've been living through into a phase where we are bringing the Greater Manchester economy back to life as safely as we possibly can, whilst at the same time supporting our residents and our communities with the particular support that will be needed. So it's a 1 year plan. It's not a new Greater Manchester strategy. It's intended to, as I say, capture some of the benefits of the time that we've been living through, but then lay the ground for when we then can start recovery recovery properly once we're in a place where there's a vaccine and a treatment. So it's been through leaders. It's fully supported by the combined authority. It's obviously important that the LEP is comfortable with this plan too. It does itemise some of the employment support, the business support that will be needed, and I will recommend it to the LEP to be supported, so that we've got some clarity going into the rest of this year and into the new year. It's obviously a difficult message to give, but it feels as though the most challenging part of this crisis may yet be ahead of us, particularly as we are reopening schools and we're beginning to see some of the challenges coming from that. We've got colleges and universities to come. I think what we've got to do is obviously encourage people to think about living with COVID as opposed to any sense of a return to normality. This is a different way of living for the time that we're currently in. I myself have returned to the office. I will be back there tomorrow. I think it's very important that we promote a message around a safe return to the office to support our city and our town centres. But obviously doing that means following the rules, wearing the face covering, managing the distancing, and actually what we want to do is obviously support other organisations to adopt the same principles, build in some flexibility to people's working week, and in some ways rethink the Greater Manchester working week as part of this, and also then the transport and traffic issues that fall out of that. So what you've got here is a time limited plan, a highly practical plan with lots of deliverables in there, Mo, and it's a bridging the gap between the crisis we've been living through and hopefully the better times that we hope lie ahead beyond this pandemic.
Thanks, Andy. Does anybody, have any sort of comments on that? No, I think obviously, Andy, from a LEP point of view, absolutely 100%, supporting and working with yourself and across the CA to achieve those objectives and land some of those interventions that we need to do. And really, it's, as per our previous conversation, it's where the LEP can take some leadership as well in, whether it's that sort of business back into work and or, the skills agenda which we're supporting and the SMEs that are, very much exposed at this moment in time. We've got furlough coming to an end, and, we expect there to be another shock imminent, and how we support our communities through that as well. So absolutely, the LEP is supporting, and where we can, we'll take that leadership as well.
Just to add, Mo, very much on the theme you just raised. I mean, the leaders have been thinking about public procurement in Greater Manchester, how we support our own supplier base as much as possible, but also using public procurement to drive the greater resilience that we need to see in terms of good employment. So we are refreshing the social value procurement framework at the moment, and have agreed to make a particular link to the Greater Manchester Good Employment Charter. So, what we're trying to find is the things that can be both good for business, but good for our communities and for society. And some of these interventions are very much trying to do both.
Brilliant. Thanks, Andy. Okay, so moving on to the internationalisation strategy. Mike, are you able to give us an overview of that paper?
Yeah, certainly, Mo, can do that. And by the way, Mo, it's now called the international strategy, because none of us could say internationalisation.
Well, I think you should keep that, Mike.
Okay. The internationalisation strategy. So you've got the paper in front of you. Thank you very much for the team for doing the paper. Let's just introduce it though. So if you go back to our 2017 strategy about Greater Manchester becoming a top 20 global city by 2035, nothing much has changed in that apart from the current situation of COVID and the EU exit stuff. So we were going to go through a refresh back in January, February of this year anyway, and the team had started doing it, started gathering the evidence to find out what was happening, and then of course COVID hits. and all things kind of draw to a halt. In the introductory paper, it talks through some of the impacts. We did some measures of the impacts that we have now seen from COVID, about the drop in exports, fall in investments, question mark over international students, how many will turn up come October, and a whole series of other things. So in line with what Andy's just talked about there on the 1 year refresh, this is going to be a single year refresh. So very much what's in the paper is a lot of it is, you would argue, is business as usual, things that are going to continue. In the interim, however, there's going to be a significant amount of relook and question about some parts of the international strategy, which markets we should be looking at, how we should be looking at those. And this is by consultation with various business bodies, with government and with local authorities as well. So that consultation has already started. The IMAB have already, International Marketing Advisory Board, have already seen this paper. And we've had some amazing comments come back from some of the people on that board, talking about their own company direction and challenges on an international stage. And just a quick reminder, of course, international strategy is about attracting international visitors to Manchester, as the same as attracting international companies to go internationally by selling their goods and services overseas as well. So there's a whole series of activities outlined in the paper, but the kind of 4 areas I wanted this particular board to look at and to give some comments back on at some point, for which I'll send you the 4 areas on an email. One is, what are your thoughts on the proposed strategic directions that we've got from your experience? Do these align with your own organisations or not? And if you see challenges that we are not seeing, then shout them out. There's a lot of things going on there, which I said are considered business as usual, but in order to remain competitive, what other things do we need to leverage that we haven't thought about yet in the current 12-month process? I should say, by the way, in 12 months, it might be 13, it might be 11. We just don't know when this living with COVID piece will come to an end. But we will then be doing a full review of a 3 to 5 year strategy as well. The third one is looking at, this has to be a document that looks at the international impact for the whole of Greater Manchester, not just for certain parts of it. So we want to bring all the 10 local authorities along with us, and that they can recognise the benefits of internationalisation in both its formats. So if members of the LEP, as you go out to see the local authority leaders, the team have offered to produce for you a crib sheet per leader to tell you what's going on in each of those areas, so you can take activity on a simple pro forma to your places and have evidence about what international means for those places, as well as taking the whole document for those who don't want to take the whole document, but also to talk to them about the emerging implementation and what it could mean for their districts as well. And finally, the other question is, which comes up in some of the other documents today, is our businesses don't, of course, exist in isolation. They're part of Greater Manchester, but they're also part of the north of England, as well as the rest of the UK. So how does the refresh continue to build on Manchester's reputation as the gateway to the north, as opposed to just Greater Manchester feeling as though it's doing well? Is there more that we could do to promote this reputation as the gateway to the north internationally, or are we not doing enough, or are we doing enough as we speak? So that's kind of headline, I think, Mo. This is for 12 months, and then we'll do a full strategy refresh. And make no apology for the detail of the paper in there as well. That's for everybody to sit and read and refresh at their leisure.
Thanks, Mike. Just a reminder, please use the chat function if you wish to come in. Lou?
Thanks, Mo. I'll feed back in more detail, Mike, when you send the email, but just a couple of comments. I think, one, just supporting the kind of agile approach of planning a year ahead, because that feels intrinsically like the only thing we can do at the moment. I think there's an opportunity to reflect some of the kind of value-led innovation language that we're going to develop through the proposition that we talked about earlier, because I think particularly from an international investment perspective, there's a kind of swelling school of thought that's very attracted to that. And I think if we can build that as a point of difference, that will be really attractive internationally. And then just another thought that I think is really starting, certainly my conversations with business starting to emerge under the digital part of the paper. And I think in the kind of opportunity camp, what's definitely emerging is that we've seen, because of the kind of penetration of digital over the last few months, the concept of geographical borders where we do business is disappearing. And that's, whilst it's creating some challenges in some businesses, it's also creating massive opportunities in others. And so I think businesses that I've talked to that have never traded internationally, you know, often service businesses, it now is kind of irrelevant where the clients are that they're servicing and where the kind of income's coming from. So I think there is real opportunity for us to leverage that and to kind of North Shore, if you like, some of the functions that are needed, that we're really great at, that we can export internationally, where previously we've had a kind of physical barrier because it's been about shipping teams of people or shipping expertise or opening an office. We're now able to run a huge amount of that from a kind of HQ in Manchester and export that across the world. So I think we definitely should discuss ways to make the most of that window opportunity and keep those habits.
Thanks, Lou. Nancy?
So I'm not holding my breath on this, but the Chinese Consul General tells me the Chinese students are coming, and Hainan has got approval for, I think, 66 flights into Manchester. They've rejected flights into some other regions are coming through Manchester, and the airport's been incredibly helpful, I have to say, in passage. Let's wait and see. And as I think we've said, Richard, if I'm worried about student behaviour, I'm much less worried about our international students than I am about our British students. We can be assured the Chinese students will do whatever we tell them to do.
Brilliant, Nancy. And we can use them as our exemplar as to how young people should behave with living with COVID. You know, there is an example to be set, and who better to do it than our young people coming in from China. That's great news, Nancy, and hopefully that will come to fruition. And again, just picking up on Lou's point, and I was going to raise the same point, Mike, that, you know, we're looking at that sort of gateway model, but is there a nationalization model for us that we are actively targeting the South and the Southeast to then, you know, for us to be a destination for those folk who now can actually say that we can be in the North and, you know, work at any level anywhere in the world. So yeah, that would be, and I think the B word needs to be obviously brought into some context as well, as it's now rearing its head again with negotiations with the politicians. So thanks for that, Mike. A comprehensive update on that front. We'll move into the governance section and just an update on our sort of search with new members and the refresh on the board. Simon, do you want to give a verbal update on that?
Yeah, just very quickly, thanks Mo. Really just to let you know, obviously, that we've got a couple of vacancies on the board, so we've agreed to go out to advert for those to try and fill those 2 vacancies. That will be progressing shortly and looking to fill those vacancies, so minimum of 2 vacancies to fill. And we also have been told by government that we do need to appoint a vice chair. Even though we've got 2 co-chairs, we still apparently need a vice chair, so I need to talk to Mo and Lou about that. But if people are interested in the in a vice chair role, then if people could let David know, then that would be great. But I'll talk to Mo and Lou about that more in the coming days. I think that's probably all I need to say on that one. Thanks.
Thanks. I'm just drawing a tricycle whilst you're on there, just into the governance model. Thanks for that, Simon. We've got an update in terms of the social value framework. Vanda, are you on?
No, I think Richard wants to come in. All
right, sorry, Richard.
So I'm just trying to find, about to put it into chat as instructed, but
it's okay, Richard.
Just a curious question, really, about this. Government says we've got to appoint a vice chair. What are they going to do if we don't? Isn't there a case? I mean, it's not a big thing to get into a big row, but shouldn't we just say you are being silly, government?
I think we can take that forward, Simon.
I'll push back.
Yeah.
Radical Manchester, Simon. Radical Manchester.
Brilliant. Okay. Right. So yeah, just asking if Vanda's on the call. Vanda. No. Oh, you're on, Vanda. Brilliant. Vanda, do you want to...
Can you hear me now, Mo?
Yes, I can. We can
Okay.
indeed.
Thanks for not joining visually. I was blocked for some reason, but I have been listening. I got used to seeing everyone, so it's a bit different just being on a voice box. Can I just agree with Richard's last point? I think given that we have two co-chairs, it seems ridiculous to ask us to appoint a sort of third into a leadership position. I think given that we have two co-chairs, we have a very strong argument to push back, so I'll support that. Great news to hear the international students coming back from Nancy, so that's good news. On social value, I've been doing quite a lot of work with Ian MacArthur on the Good Employment Charter and with the team at the LEP, and I think making pretty good progress. I mean, it is all bound up with the way we work generally, but I think some very specific things need to come out of it in the outcomes of what we do and how we measure it and what we set as our target. So I think for now, and you can't see me and I don't have a paper, so just to say there is some really good work happening, both with the Good Employment Charter and with the diversity and inclusion, and with some outcomes on social value. And I think when I can see you all and when I can have a paper to show you, it will be a little bit better. So apologies, but just to say it is a work in progress, and you will hear more from me next time. Hopefully see me as well.
Brilliant. Thanks, Vanda. Any colleagues who want to comment on that paper? And again, great work being done, and it's something that we need to, obviously as part of our, here and now, keep in the focus and make sure that we can look at, and within that even 12-month plan, look to deliver some tangible outcomes around our investment in that area, which is really important that we do that. Lorna, yes?
Yeah, I'm really glad that Vanda's leading this, because I think that she's got, a really brilliant grasp of it and has done it personally. One of the things that, one of the things that I would say is that we're getting better at talking about this, as rather than it being something that we have to be reminded to tag along, it's on the agenda. But one of the things that I think that we're not as good at really understanding is how central to the business case that having diverse leadership at the top is in terms of performance. And if we wanted yet another example of it, Goldman Sachs did a piece of research for the anniversary of women getting the vote in America, and it was published yesterday, and it showed by a whopping Queen's mile, I can't remember, how much better the performance and investment funds are if they're led by women or mixed groups of people. And so, although this is about social values and everything else, I don't think that we should shy away from putting a hard economic edge and argument around why this is so important. It's not because we're soppy lefties and we're all a bit, faux or whatever. It's because there is a hard economic case and it's building. And if it's good enough for economics, for Goldman Sachs, and it keeps on coming and coming as evidence, we need to be less shy about putting it front and centre. And it's got to be part, I know it's in our economic proposition, but sometimes I think that we're a bit shy about it. And we're getting there, but it's just yet again a reminder of how important this is to our economic recovery.
Great, thanks, Lorna. Yeah, and again, as Simon mentioned earlier, that these are things that we as a LEP can take ownership on and drive through as part of that proposition and make happen and achieve those ambitions and show the evidence as well. So very much in our gift to drive that forward. Thanks, Lorna. Any other comments? And I'll move to the last item on the agenda, and over
Mark,
to you.
Can I just have one sentence just to kind of support Lorna's point, because I think if we're going to be serious about having a progressive modern economic proposition, the diversity point and the evidence around how that makes good economic sense is a really important one. So hopefully we can begin to build that evidence over the coming months. Yeah,
super. As well as the BAME agenda as well in tandem, equally important. So Mark, are you on the call? Calling Mark.
Yeah, Mark responding. So just unmuting Mo.
Great.
After 4 months, still forgetting to do that. Okay. Basically, as the principal SME business support vehicle for the LEP, my understanding was that the LEP understandably wanted to get a little bit more information on what support had been delivered to businesses in the here and now around COVID. So hopefully this paper gives you, a good comprehensive overview of nearly everything that we've been doing, principally through the Growth Hub, although as mentioned in the paper, there are a range of other services that have all been redirected to COVID support. So I'm not going to go through the detail of the paper, Mo, because there's a lot of facts and figures in there, just to show the kind of scale and nature of demand that we've been responding to. Just a minor detour, just to kind of say that GC as an organisation has also been going through many of the things that businesses themselves have been going through. We started the year with a forecast revenue of something approaching 120 million. That's now been reduced to about 102 million. So, we as an organisation have instituted pay cuts, redundancy measures and use of furlough, whilst at the same time delivering extensive business support as well. So just a little bit of context there. I thought it was maybe just useful to just say what we're kind of focused on now and the next few months. Importantly, within that range of things, one clearly around intelligence, really understanding what's going on in SMEs at the moment. Clearly our new survey is reaching a lot of businesses and getting a great deal of intelligence around that. And everything is showing and pointing towards, I guess, rather than one big wave, but a series of waves of impacts on businesses and their employees in terms of negative impacts coming through from now, probably over the next 12, 15 months as schemes get withdrawn. I think it's also important just to kind of note the degree of new business opportunities kind of been that have been realised and new innovation that businesses have done during this period as well. So again, there's figures in the report around the scale of new market opportunities, new innovation being exploited. Right here, right now, we're still working with many businesses around returning to the workplace and also working with COVID, as Andy mentioned about living with COVID. And even today, numerous businesses contacting us around the school's bubbles bursting and the impact on their employees and taking time off and another sort of wave of activity around that. A lot of focus clearly on business resilience going forward. A lot of focus on trying to work with businesses and bring any new business opportunities to them, because this is about not just trying to retain the existing businesses and the work that they have, but finding new business opportunities for them. There are some specific sector initiatives that we're focused on, particularly around hospitality, leisure and tourism. And two other things just to mention, both of which, Mo, you've already touched on. Brexit is coming back with a vengeance for businesses, so there'll be a lot of ups and downs over the next few months as the political negotiations get heated. And then on the people side, clearly a lot of focus around our support for individuals affected through redundancy, through employee GM. And Mo, you also mentioned Kickstart. We're having good conversations with CA colleagues around that. We've already put our toe into the marketplace, if we call it that, because there is a bit of like a Wild West, as you've described out there, or will be out there. And so we will go live with a GM program around Kickstart by GC next week. So again, proving that we can be adaptable and speedy in our actions. But happy to take any questions actually on the paper or what we're likely to be doing in the next few months around business support.
Thanks, Mark. Any comments on that? The quite a comprehensive paper that Mark's provided.
Mo?
Yes, Laura.
A question about the behaviour of the banks. and what data you're picking up from alternative sources and picking up some really troubling behaviour, that they're behaving worse than they did in 2008. And I wonder whether you've got any data on that.
Only anecdotal, Lorna, in terms of what our access to finance team picks up. And yeah, as always, you will see different bank behaviour in different places. So we're getting both. I don't think we're getting a uniform picture of bank bad behaviour, Lorna. I think the big thing really to look forward to, if that's the right phrase, is how they manage the non-payment of bounce back loans and civil loans, and you know, that will start to occur next year, and that's why I'm saying this is going to be a series of waves. So how the banks treat that, because the government are not wanting to seem to take that risk back onto them, although they're guaranteeing it in one respect. But the banks will have a big reputational issue to manage through about how they're treating bank bounce loan businesses. But you know, there's discussions about, you know, maybe 50% of those will default, and then you know, a high proportion of those default will not survive. So I think that's the big one to watch out for.
Mo, could I ask Mark? It would be very, very helpful to have a timeline of when you think it's critical for us to really, because as a LEP, if we do nothing else, we have to be absolutely, excuse my French, like shit off a shovel in terms of working out whether there's a problem and hitting back hard. Because if we think that the banks are bothered about public opinion, then we didn't learn anything about 2008. They're bothered about survival. And I know that there's sort of differences and variations and whatever, but in the end, our job of work is to protect our businesses and make sure that they have a liquidity. And so it's our responsibility, and if you can tell us when those junctures are, we make sure that we are absolutely on whether we need to take action as a LEP.
Yeah, I mean, we already have a full schedule timeline of every scheme and when every scheme is due to end, Lorna. I know that's not exactly what you're saying, but it's a useful starter, and then to potentially map onto that when the impacts of that scheme ending might come into play.
Thanks, Mark. And just for me to add as well, I think there's one thing about, you know, SMEs and the recapitalization of the debt. And you mentioned pivoting and looking at new markets, Mark. That's a key issue. I sort of read an eye-watering stat where there's 85,000 companies at risk, SMEs, at a risk of 1.2 million jobs. You know, and the good businesses are going to go down because of the gearing and the debt that they've now had to take on. And really, again, in our proposition, in our CSR, you know, what can we do to try and incubate those good businesses, to recapitalize, to free up, you know, their ability to innovate and then move into new markets, because that's what we really need them to do. And really, we need a plan on that and identify those good companies that, for no fault of their own, have had to take on that debt. And now, because they have to service the debt, they're going to now be hamstrung and essentially, you know, be at risk of going under because they can't innovate as quickly as maybe others who are more liquid can do so. And you know, we've already seen listed companies bolster up their balance sheet because they have access to capital. Yep. And SMEs don't. The only capital they've had is the branch borrowing, and yep. That's going to come to bear. So I think that's something that maybe we could think about. Yep. And identify how we can actually incubate those companies to try and help them recapitalize and innovate at the same time.
Okay. Mo, okay. Yes. I think also gets us to raise a question about whether it's appropriate, whether we need the investment task force in as it's currently constituted anymore, and whether what we need to do is bring it back in terms of some of the work we're doing on the economic proposition and other things. Now, I'll leave that for you and Lou to talk about, but I think that out of the things that we established in an interim basis, it's an outlier now. And given what you're talking about and the fact that we've still not got a package which says this is what GM thinks should happen in relation to the recapitalisation of businesses, I still think that's a challenge for us as a LEP.
Yeah, No, fair comment, Laura. Okay, so we've reached the sort of 5:30 cutoff, which is, well done everybody for supporting the timeline. Great meeting, great conversation, plenty to take forward. And again, thank you to everybody for the immense effort everybody's making and contribution of time and thought into taking us forward and recovery and living with COVID. Some really testing times ahead, but together with that positivity and unified purpose, we can hopefully get through it positively. So thank you very much. Stay safe, everybody, and hopefully see you all soon.